Hey everybody, Eric Schweitzer here for The Gamer, here with Jade King.
I'm back. It's been a while.
The Legend of Zelda, Echoes of Wisdom. Before we get into the review, can you review the name? Review
Oh,
the title for us.
it's a good name. I don't know what the wisdom part refers to. Maybe it's like the Triforce, but you use a
Yeah,
lot of echoes. Yeah, it's a good name as far as Zelda names go. It's fun to say.
Echoes of Wisdom. Here we have another wokeification of video games. The Sweet Babies came in, they made it woke, they put a woman in charge.
Yeah.
But you know what? I think it turned out okay this time.
Who runs the world? Zelda. That's
Who runs the world? Zelda. So I played like 2 hours of this only
Yeah.
at PAX. You've played more, so tell us all about it.
So I played the same preview chunk of your. I played the same preview chunk that you did, which was like the opening where you're getting out into the open world, like seeing a bit of the first dungeon. And yeah, I'd say a lot of the gameplay elements, like the key thing in this is Zelda can summon echoes, which is basically any applicable enemy or object in the game world, which you can use to do platforming, engage with other enemies, and this superpower essentially replaces what you'd normally see Link have in a Zelda game. It's just like swords, shields, and bombs, and so on. So it's not a matter of Zelda is playable, but she does all of the things Link does, and it's essentially the same game. It kind of puts Zelda in the leading role and simultaneously reinvents what it is to be a 2D Zelda game, which is really cool. There's a bunch of like experimental stuff in here that could easily be compared to the sort of stuff that Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom did, but it applies it to a much smaller and more intimate adventure. It's very much in the vein of that Link's Awakening remake from a few years ago.
Yeah, stylistically, but you're totally right. It's a completely different take on Zelda, and it's very like resource management, and it's a lot more strategic. I found in like the boss battles and stuff, because you're having to use the different things that you can summon, the different creatures that you can summon, and sort of
Yeah.
like balance the cost, because everything has a cost, and you can only buy so many echoes at a time, right? So it's
Yeah.
sort of this like clever strategy, almost weirdly like RTS quality to it.
Yeah, no, there was. Oh god, what was it that really rung a bell when I was playing? There was another game which uses like similar systems, and it really harkened back to that. But the name is completely escaping me.
Mm.
But you're totally right. Even in the preview we played, it was a matter of like you can only summon so many objects or so many creatures at a time. And in the full game, I think you top out at roughly 6 summonable echoes at any given time.
Okay.
And even that can be different depending if one costs more to summon or one costs less. So often you'll only have like 3 or 4 offensive echoes to summon, or 6 beds which you can use to like climb a cliff or solve a puzzle. So you need to be thinking, okay, I want to get up that cliff. How am I going to do it? How am I going to use my different echoes and so on? And you can obviously fall into a balance of using all of the same ones throughout the entire game. Like I did find like a water block echo, which allows you to swim in any direction if they're piled up on top of each other, and that was brilliant for traversal. Or I found like a high level spinning attack enemy where I'm like, okay, that can take out anything. So you could play this game really simply if you wanted to, but much like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, that joy comes in like experimenting and trying to find out different ways to play the game, which lends itself really well to a lot of the puzzles you find or the exploration you can do in the open world. Because often it's like you'll be given a solution that you need to reach, and it's like how you do it is completely up to you. Like you might need to light a torch on the other side of the room. How you're going to get fire over there? You might need to press a switch on the other side of a temple. How you do that is up to you, which was quite interesting when, at least aside from maybe A Link Between Worlds, 2D Zeldas have always been very rigid in regards to like how you might solve a puzzle or defeat an enemy, because they'd often like base a temple around a single item you discover and things like that. It's
Right.
like this is how you do it, and if you don't do it this way, you're not progressing. And Echoes of Wisdom has moments like that, but more often than not, you can just go about it however you want, and that's like quite liberating. There's only one sequence where your powers are taken away and it turns into like a more traditional adventure, but that's like so brief, and it's kind of fun to realize, okay, I don't have my echoes now, but I do have a bunch of items surrounding me that I can use. So I can think about like, how would I use those as echoes, but the circumstances are now more limited. So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff here. I'd never call it necessarily difficult or overly strategic, but it wants you to play around.
Yeah, I think that is definitely the thing that impressed me the most. It's not just the 2D Zeldas that have been rigid in their like puzzle and problem solving. It's all Zeldas before Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, you're totally right, because that's why they needed to change, right? Because they're a bit too predictable. And that was my fear with this when I previewed it. I was like, okay, we've got all these cool powers and stuff, but how much can you push those in a 2.5D plane? And
right.
I don't think Echoes of the Wisdom takes it as far as it could have. But maybe that's just a limit of like the kind of design that you've got going on. I would have loved to be able to do more with the echoes and so on, but what it does, both combining the fact that it's introducing a playable Zelda for the first time and reinventing a lot of the fundamentals, is still a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm sure that removing the third dimension really limits the like creative problem solving compared to Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. I mean, really, how many problems can be solved just by stacking beds on top of each other?
It's very much, it's always a case of like, I need to push that thing or get up there. Sometimes you'll have to like melt some ice or activate some fire or all of that elemental stuff that Zelda's been doing for decades. But it's just like, it has extra steps now, or you feel more rewarded because you're doing it yourself instead of just throwing a boomerang. I will say you would have seen this in the preview too, something called the Sword Fighter form, which is essentially, you want to call it an ultimate ability, but you can use it whenever you like, and energy is very plentiful. But in the full game, it lets you transform into what is essentially like a spectre of Link, and you can use your sword, you get a bow, you get bombs at certain points, so it becomes almost like a secondary loadout. A lot of the things that you can do in Sword Fighter form can be done with echoes, so I very much just ended up using it whenever a boss was down and I needed to deal lots of damage, or I just didn't fancy doing the echo stuff to get past like a group of enemies. It was like, okay, Sword Fighter form, gonna use this. It could have been overbearing or lessened the ecosystem in a few ways, but it doesn't. It's a decent balance there.
Do you think that there's a potential sequel that would have the same kind of growth that Breath of the Wild had to Tears of the Kingdom?
I think so. I wrote a feature which is kind of adjacent to this recently about how Echoes of Wisdom makes me want almost like a Zelda maker, which I think would be really cool.
Yeah.
But there's potential in like a sequel where maybe some of the world is sucked away by a darkness, and Zelda has to use her echoes to not only do traditional dungeons and fight enemies, but maybe rebuild the world or consider like more creative implementations of the echoes, because I think the groundwork is here. Maybe it would involve stepping away from Hyrule or making the open world a bit bigger and ambitious. But I do see there's definite growth here, because it's a different kind of Zelda game that isn't like swords and sorcery. It's more like beds and torches or something.
Yeah. Is there any like side quests or mini games or other stuff that I wouldn't have seen in the preview? Like, can you actually decorate a room with echoes?
So, no, you can't really decorate because obviously they run out after a certain point.
Sure.
Which is a shame. It would have been, because you can go to Zelda's room in Hyrule Castle and you can learn her bed as an echo, and when you sleep in it, it restores lots of health. And like, there could have been more cute touches like that, I think. And I think there could be in the future if they do any DLC or a sequel or anything. But yeah, there's a lot to the open world, and I was surprised by this. There was a substantial amount of side quests to be doing, and they kind of grew with the story, which was a surprise. Because I got to a point where I finished a major side quest and I decided to revisit some locations, and I'm like, okay. I went into Kakariko Village, and there was an entire quest where I earned a cat costume, which then would let you speak to any other cat in the open world. Or there was a really touching quest where you speak to your father, and it's about like the responsibilities of Zelda serving her kingdom, and the prize for it is like the costume that you wear in Ocarina of Time, like the traditional dress. And it's like, okay, they put some thought into the storytelling here in a similar way that Breath of the Wild and Tears do, which you kind of don't expect from a 2D Zelda in a lot of ways. It's kind of like, you need to save the world and this and that, but it feels a bit more nuanced. And there's a bunch of other silly mini games like horse racing. There's this dude spread across the open world who just throws acorns at you all the time, and it's like, if you collect them all in a certain amount of time, then you can fucking get loads of rupees or whatever. But there's a lot of like cute side stuff, to the point where I was trying to do everything. Oh, and there's this dude, he's just called the Stamp Guy. He doesn't have a name, and he's got put stamps across the open world that you can collect, and it's kind of an excuse just to fill in every dot on the map. I haven't gotten them all during my playthrough, so I'm unsure what the final prize is. But yeah, there's a decent amount of stuff to do off the beaten path. It's nowhere near as substantial as Tears or Breath of the Wild in terms of like being a completionist. It's a much more comfier, condensed game. Like you could run from one end of this open world to another in like 10 minutes. Like it's not going to take very long. Less than that, actually. It's very like cutesy.
How was the performance? Because I felt like in the preview I noticed some chugging.
So it's nowhere near as bad as Link's Awakening.
Okay.
Because that game was distractingly chuggy.
Yeah.
Like moving screen to screen. This game tops out at 60, which it will do in indoor environments and stuff. And then it kind of tapers out as things get busier. But it never got to a point where I was like, ugh, this is very unpleasant to play. It was just kind of okay. Like it could be better, it could be way worse. It feels like they've optimized the engine a bit more since Link's Awakening. That by like potentially changing some of the stuff, that there's a bit less detail or it's more spread out. Because my fear was you can summon lots of echoes and the game gets very busy very quickly.
Right.
And that could be a recipe for the frame rate tanking. But no, it's mostly okay. Like I played both docked and portably throughout the review process, and I never got to a point where I was like, ugh, I don't like this, because I had that with Link's Awakening. Like that was unpleasant to play at points.
Cool. Okay. Anything else to touch on?
Oh gosh, no, not really. I think it's really fun. I gave it 4 out of 5 as like a long-term Zelda fan, but sometimes someone who's clashed with 2D, I really enjoyed how it introduced Zelda as a playable character and didn't just make her the parallel to Link or like a weaker like female equivalent, because there are moments in this where you can see her taking the initiative or being cool or realizing, well, I'm a princess, but it doesn't mean like I have to stand back and not do anything. Because there's a very cute moment I won't spoil, but Zelda and another character are about to like rush into a portal to like fight a boss, and you expect Zelda's friend to essentially go in first, but she just legs it in straight away and just doesn't care. And it does a really good job of like giving her a personality, which maybe in the future we'll see her playable in like a 3D Zelda or like a sequel to this. But yeah, really enjoyable, a really cute potential swan song for the Switch, given the Switch 2 is probably right around the corner. And then this is definitely the last Zelda game that's not a remaster that we're going to get on this console.
Right. Yeah, it'll be cool to see if these ideas maybe get taken forward into the next 3D game. Yeah,
you can definitely see where they drew inspiration from Tears and Breath of the Wild for this. So why not like cross-pollinate even further? That would be cool.
Cool. All right, that's it for this video. We have the full review linked down in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell, and visit us at thegamer.com. That's The Gamer, no spaces.